Millions of years ago, man was just discovering the world and their place in it. Welcome to Stone Age. Stone Age is a worker placement game for 2 to 4 players from Z-Man Games. Players will try to establish their settlements by building huts, hunting, mating, mining, and building tools, all while trying to keep their villagers fed. Will you be able to conquer the rough terrain and thrive, or will you be stuck in a cave barely able to survive? Let's find out in Stone Age. Place the board in the middle of the table. Separate the different values of food and place them in the hunting grounds. Place the wood, clay, stone, and gold resources either on the board or near the board within reach of all players. Separate the different values of tool tiles and place them on their designated space in the village. Shuffle up the civilization cards and place them face down near the game board. Starting with the rightmost space, place 4 cards onto each one of the indicated spaces. Shuffle the building tiles and stack them into piles of 7 buildings each. Place the number of piles equal to the number of players onto the designated spaces. Then return the rest to the box. For example, we'll be having 3 players, so I have 3 piles out. Each player chooses a color and takes the corresponding small cube, large cube, figures, and takes a player board. Then, place the small cube marker in the 0 space of the agriculture tracker and their large cube in the 0 space of the scoring tracker. Each player gets 5 figures and 12 food to start the game with. Place the rest of the figures and the dice club near the board. The youngest player goes first and receives the first player token. You are now ready to play. Stone Age is played in 3 phases and must be played in the following order: placement, action, and feeding. The first player will place 1 or more of their figures on their desired location. Continue clockwise around the table till each player has placed their figures. This will continue until all players have placed their final figure. Once everyone has placed their figures, the first player will begin to complete the actions on any space they have placed their figures. These actions can be completed in any order, but each space does have a specific action and a specific number of figures that can be placed there. You can place 1 figure on the tool marker location. This allows you to take 1 tool or upgrade your already existing tools. Tools will give you an advantage by adding to your rolls when you mine. Place these in the designated spaces on your player board. In order to upgrade tools, you must already have 3 of the previous number in play. For example, I have 3 level 1 tools currently, so the next time I go to the tool marker location, I can flip over one of them to make it a level 2. If I only had 2 level 1 tools, I would have to take another level 1 tool before I can upgrade. No other player's figures can be placed here. You can place 2 figures on the hut location. If you choose to go to the hut, place both figures at the same time. This will allow you to take 1 figure from the supply to be used in following rounds. No other player's figures can be placed here. You can place 1 figure on the field. This allows you to move 1 space on the agriculture track. The agriculture track number helps you feed your civilization. For example, right now I have 5 figures, so I'd have to feed them 5 food tokens at the end of the round. If I have a 1 on the agriculture tracker, I will only have to feed them 4 tokens. No other player's figures can be placed here. You can place however many figures you would like to on the hunting grounds, and all players may place figures here. This is where you acquire food. You can place up to 7 figures on any of the mining spaces. If you choose to go to one of these spaces, you must choose how many of your figures you're going to send there during that round. You cannot place more figures down during later turns of that round. The number of players that can place figures here varies depending on the number of players playing, but remember, only 7 figures can go onto these spaces. When hunting or mining, dice will decide how many resources you're able to collect. First, pick a location you want to mine at, and then take dice equal to the number of figures you have at that location. Then what you do is take the sum of the dice roll, plus any tools you wanted to use, and then divide it by the value of the resource you're trying to collect. For example, if you're hunting, you would divide it by 2, harvesting wood you divide by 3, if you're mining clay you divide by 4, stone by 5, and gold by 6. For example, I placed 3 figures on the clay space, and I rolled a 10. This would give me 2 clay. However, if I add 2 of my tools to it, it would give me 12, which would then give me 3 clay. If you choose to purchase a civilization card, place one of your figures on top of that civilization card. You can purchase a civilization card by paying the number of resources on top of that card. Some cards allow you to roll dice equal to the number of players and allow all players to choose which resource they want, one by one, clockwise around the table. Civilization cards can get you resources and food, but can also get you a lot of points at the end of the game. I'll discuss this later on in scoring. If you choose to buy a building tile, place one of your figures on top of that desired building. In order to purchase a building tile, you must pay the number of resources listed at the bottom of that tile. Some buildings do have special rules in order to purchase them. For example, this building requires 4 resources of 2 different types. Once you buy them, place them on the designated spots of your player board. If you run out of spaces, simply place them either above or below your board. Buildings will get you points as soon as you build them. Buildings are worth 3 different types of points. Some buildings have a point value listed in the upper left-hand corner. Simply move your score marker up that many points when you build it. Some buildings score depending on what resources you use to buy it. Remember that building from earlier? I will use 2 stone and 2 gold to purchase it. Since gold is worth 6 and stone is worth 5, it will get me 22 points. Some are scored by how many resources you use to purchase it. For example, this building lets me use between 1 and 7 resources of the same type to purchase it. If I have 4 gold and 7 wood, if I use the wood to purchase it, because the wood is only worth 3, it would give me 21 points. But I have 4 gold worth 6 each, which would give me 24 points. So even though it's less resources, using gold would give me more points in the end. During the feeding phase, pay food equal to the number of figures you have, minus where you are on the agriculture tracker. If you don't have enough food to feed your tribe, you may use resources instead. If you're unable to feed them completely, immediately lose 10 victory points. Once everyone has been fed, cleanup begins. Slide the remaining civilization cards to the right and place new ones from the pile onto the designated spots. Then, pass the first player marker to the left, and a new round begins. The game will end in one of 2 ways. First, if there are not enough civilization cards to fill the 4 civilization spaces, or one of the building stacks is empty. If there are not enough civilization cards to fill the 4 spaces, the game ends immediately. If one of the building stacks is empty, that is the last round as soon as you finish the feeding phase. There are 2 different ways to gain points at the end of the game: civilization cards and resources left over. Civilization cards with green backgrounds can be collected into sets. Take the number of different types and multiply them by themselves. For example, I have a set of 5 cards and a set of 3 cards. I would multiply the set of 5 by 5 for 25 points and the set of 3 by 3 for 9 points. Then I would add them together for a total of 34 points. Cards with sand in the background have several different ways of scoring. Each have pictures of people in the bottom left-hand corner. The number of people is multiplied by either the number on the agriculture track, the total number of tools that you have, the total number of buildings that you have, or the number of figures that you have. For example, I have 2 cards that have a total of 3 people on them. I will then multiply that by the total number of tools that I have collected, which is 5, for a total of 15 points. Each resource left is worth 1 point. Whoever has the most points wins. In the case of a tie, players will compare their agriculture level, tool value, and figures acquired. And that's Stone Age.